In today's session, we're going to continue on the series on leadership and workforce alignment and engagement. This is a necessary condition to becoming a high-performing organization. As we walk through the process to get that leadership alignment and engagement, there's different steps. We've gone through the steps of resistance, understanding what the layers of resistance are, and today's our last session on overcoming layers of resistance, and then we'll talk about some coaching techniques in the next future sessions. I can't stress how important it is to get everyone aligned and engaged in this process. So any improvement you want to make to the organization, if you don't have complete buy-in, you don't have people aligned, you're not going to get the expected results and not going to be a high-performing organization. Today's session is still on overcoming resistance to change, and these are techniques to overcome what we call layer 6 resistance, which is disagreement on the risk, which is really unverbalized fear. So people, as you go through all the process, you go through the training, you go through the mindset shift, they're still going to have doubts, and they're not going to verbalize those doubts. They're going to keep it in until, things start to change, and then they get nervous, and then they'll start resisting again because they're scared of the unknown. So how do you overcome this level of fear, the unverbalized fear? Again, just a review of the layers of resistance. So we've gone through all the layers. We're on the last layer now, layer 6. But layer 0 is why change, so disagreement that there is a problem. Layer 1 is disagreement on the problem itself. Layer 2 is disagreement on the direction of the solution. Layer 3 is disagreement of the details of the solution. Layer 4 is disagreement on the negative ramifications. Those are the yes buts we're listening for. Layer 5 is disagreement on the details of the implementation. And layer 6, which is this session, disagreement on the risk or unverbalized fear. So first of all, what is risk? So if we look at risk, it's any uncertain event or set of events which, if it should occur, will have an effect on the achievement of the objective. So of course, we have the objective of being a high-performing organization, and anything that's going to prevent us from achieving that goal. And also we have critical success factors defined. Anything that's going to prevent us from reaching those critical success factors can be considered risk. So risk is the combination of probability of a perceived threat or opportunity occurring and the magnitude of its impact on the objectives. So there's different types of risks, including technical risks, financial risks, time risks, and strategy risks. So typically we're going to be looking at technical risks and time risks and strategy risks in this operational excellence focus, and those can translate into financial risks. So depending on where the people sit in the organization, they're going to have different levels of risk depending on their area of responsibility. So factors that affect risk, that unverbalized fear, first is the risk tolerance. So what is risk tolerance? Risk tolerance is a level of risk that an individual or organization is willing to accept or tolerate. So of course, there's people that have different levels of risk tolerance. And typically what I see is the longer that somebody's been in a company, the lower their risk tolerance, meaning they don't like to change. They like how things are done. They feel comfortable in their position. And also the less longevity a person has in the company, typically the higher their risk tolerance. So usually the younger people have a higher risk tolerance, or the employees with the longer employment status typically resist change more often and with a higher level of resistance. Also, risk tolerance can be based on factors like risk appetite, available resources, and risk management strategies. The other thing that affects risk is uncertainty. So the lack of complete information or predictability about the future, which can make it challenging to accurately assess and quantify risks. So again, you're going to go through all this training, the whole process, our design sprints to overcome these issues and to try to predict what's going to come out of the future state design, but still there's a lot of uncertainty there because people don't know what they don't know. So when you have this level of uncertainty, that affects their risk or their unverbalized fear. Next is impact on objectives. So the extent that these occurrences of risk events and how that's going to affect the achievement of the objectives. Also, risk can impact various goals such as financial performance, project deadlines, reputational standing, and safety. Also, interconnectedness. So being able to recognize that there is cause and effect relationships, and there's interdependencies between different risks. So if you have a risk in one area, there's an interdependency of that risk causing some problem or a risk event in some other area, which could trigger or worsen other risks. So we need to understand these 4 factors affecting risk. And if we understand these 4 factors, then we can start attacking and reducing the risk, which will reduce the unverbalized fear. Next, I want to talk about the buy-in profile. For this is the profile that I see from experience when I'm working with organizations. So we have a graph here with level of buy-in across the horizontal axis. The vertical axis is the number of employees. And so when you have any change or any improvement initiative going on, you're going to have some employees with very low level of buy-in, some employees with high level. So what I found from experience is that about 10% of the people are going to be very limited buy-in. They're going to be like, this will never work here. I think this guy's crazy. It's like, I've been here a long time. It's like, it's so counterintuitive to what we've done. It's not going to work. So we have this 10% in the low level of buy-in or very limited buy-in. Also, what I see is that we have another group at the upper end here where we have sufficient buy-in to achieve the objectives. And that's typically about 10%. So then you have this big group in the middle here of 80% with moderate buy-in. I call those people the fence sitters. So they're not sure if it's going to work. They're not sure if it's not going to work. They're just sort of sitting there on the fence like, okay, this is interesting, but I can't make an opinion one way or another. And I'm not really bought in, but I'm not really not bought in. And so these fence sitters make up the majority of the people in the organization. So what we want to do is we want to have a successful first step of the implementation that brings significant results. And what will happen is these fence sitters will flip from the moderate buy-in to sufficient buy-in. Now you get the momentum and critical mass to move the company forward. So this is a key here, understanding this profile and then understanding how to get these moderate buy-in people to flip to the sufficient buy-in side. So how do we mitigate risk? So there's 3 elements of risk. So first is severity. So that's the magnitude or impact of the adverse event on the organization. So we measure that severity against the company objectives or our key performance indicators. So if we're not able to achieve this, what is the severity to the organization? Or it could be an effect on the customer. So anything with a customer negative effect is going to have a high severity rating. Then we look at the occurrence. So what's the likelihood that this event will happen? And of course, without some expertise to help guide through the implementation, we always want to have somebody with the knowledge and expertise and experience of implementing these types of things to reduce the likelihood of occurrence. So the likelihood of occurrence, if that number is high and the severity high, of course, our risk level is high. And then the third one is our detection ability. Are we able to detect the existence of an adverse event early in the process? So if we start to see something go off track, we take immediate corrective actions to get it back on track before it becomes a major issue. So we can take all risks, we can classify them according to the severity, occurrence, and detection. If you're familiar with the FEMA process, you rank severity on a scale of 1 to 10, occurrence on a scale of 1 to 10, detection on a scale of 1 to 10, and then you multiply the 3 numbers together to get a risk priority number. And that risk priority number gives you the level of risk of that situation or event. The higher the risk, the more attention we need to focus on trying to mitigate that risk. So then what are the techniques that I found to reduce the unverbalized fear? So first of all, during implementation, get big wins early. So pick the events, the changes that you're going to do that are going to produce huge positive effects for the organization, and get those big wins early. That'll help the fence sitters turn into believers. Provide one-on-one coaching to the influence. So the people who are the influencers in the organization that a lot of people look up to, a lot of people listen to, make sure you get them bought in, and you want to do one-on-one coaching with them using the Socratic method to reinforce the new mindset. Third, ensure we have the correct performance measures in place. So remember, people behave in the way they're measured. So if we have the wrong measurements that we're measuring the people against, we're going to get the wrong behaviors, which may be misaligned with the goal. Next is establish the one rule and follow the rule. So what's the one rule? The one rule is we follow the rules, period, with zero exceptions. So this is a hard one. When we establish rules, we follow the rules 100% of the time with zero variation. And then if we understand the negative effects that come from following the rule, then we can recalibrate the rule and change the process accordingly. And then provide immediate corrective action when someone's not following the rules. So we talked about the management window in the past. We want to reduce that management window, and we want to build accountability into the process so that when something starts to go off the rails, so this is our detection method, we can detect it immediately and take the immediate corrective action to get it back on track. So that's our session for today. Thanks for joining. Connect with me on LinkedIn, visit our website, go to our YouTube channel where we have lots of videos on becoming a high-performing organization.